The silent treatment is a sinister and manipulative tactic wielded by a narcissist designed to inflict maximum emotional distress. By withholding communication and affection, the narcissist tightens an invisible noose around your heart, suffocating your spirit and leaving you feeling abandoned, rejected, and utterly insignificant. It kills a part of yours and changes you completely as a person. Let's understand how in today's episode. Hi, I am Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional. In this episode, we will explore the emotional devastation and destruction caused by a narcissist's silent treatment. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel because your subscription always helps spread awareness about narcissistic abuse. The silent treatment plunges you into an abyss of unbearable emotional agony. As a survivor, I have experienced the gut-wrenching torment of feeling invisible and ignored. The silent treatment that a narcissist gives you shatters your emotional well-being. You feel psychologically strangulated and eternally abandoned. The chronic silent treatment that the narcissist gives you in intervals over the years changes your thoughts, emotions, and behavior. You become desperate for validation. Their refusal to communicate leaves you starving for any hint of acknowledgement, like a drowning person gasping for air. The emotional void created by their silence forces you to seek validation elsewhere, often in unhealthy and destructive ways. You become addicted to seeking approval, a craving that leads you down dark paths. You find yourself continually sacrificing your own needs, desires, and well-being in an attempt to please the narcissist in your life. You go to great lengths, bending over backwards to cater to their every whim and demand, hoping that your efforts will be met with some sort of validation or appreciation. It becomes a never-ending cycle, an exhausting chase for their attention and approval. The narcissist dangles the carrot of affection just out of your reach, and you run after it, desperately trying to grasp it. This chase leaves you physically, emotionally, and mentally drained. But you can't help but pursue it as the need for validation becomes an addiction. The narcissist keeps you under their thumb through the silent treatment. They wield this weapon to maintain control, knowing that your desperation for their attention and validation makes you vulnerable. They use silence to manipulate you, to keep you guessing and to ensure that you remain emotionally tethered to them. This constant need for validation and approval becomes an addiction, as I said earlier, a craving that leaves you feeling you have gone crazy. As you chase after the narcissist's elusive affection, you lose sight of your own self-worth, dignity, and sense of identity. Your happiness and emotional stability becomes entirely a function of the narcissist's whims, leaving you emotionally fragile and utterly disempowered. Also, you feel completely isolated and lonely because of the narcissist's silent treatment. The silent treatment they give you creates a suffocating atmosphere of isolation, leaving you feeling as if you are trapped in a glass cage, desperately screaming for help, yet no one seems to hear you. This overwhelming sense of isolation and loneliness relentlessly gnaws at your soul, causing you to feel abandoned and completely alone in the world. In the throes of the narcissist's silent treatment, it feels as if you have been exiled to an emotional desert where the very around you is filled with deafening silence of their indifference. Though life continues around you, the isolation imposed by their silence disconnects you from the world outside, making you a prisoner of your own emotions and creating an unbridgeable chasm between you and others. This imposed solitude not only amplifies your pain, but also erodes your ability to resist the narcissist's manipulations and preserve your sense of self-worth. As you spend more time in isolation, your emotional resilience weakens and the narcissist's influence over you grows stronger. The loneliness becomes a vicious cycle. The more isolated you feel, the more vulnerable you become to the narcissist's control and abuse. Moreover, this isolation can extend beyond the confines of your relationship with the narcissist. The silent treatment may make you withdraw from your friends and family, worsening your feelings of loneliness and abandonment. You also become so desperate for connection that you try to reconnect with the narcissist only to find yourself entangled in their web of manipulation once again. Talking about self-blame, you start blaming yourself. Self-blame and guilt set in because their silence has a sinister way of making you believe that you are somehow responsible for their withdrawal. You become consumed by self-blame and guilt, which corrodes your self-esteem and intensifies your feelings of worthlessness. It feels as if you are an emotional punching bag, constantly taking the blame for every issue and feeling responsible for the narcissist's happiness. This persistent burden of guilt and self-blame can warp your perspective, making it nearly impossible to see the situation objectively and recognize their silent treatment as a punishment, not an invitation to fix their emotions. You start to believe that everything that goes wrong in the relationship is your fault and that you deserve the cruel treatment that the narcissist dishes out. This distorted perception leads to a constant internal struggle as you try to figure out what you did wrong and how you can make things right again. The narcissist capitalizes on your self-doubt and guilt, using it to further manipulate and control you. The weight of this guilt becomes crushing, making it difficult to stand up for yourself or even recognize that you are being abused. Silent treatment becomes a norm and you feel obligated to make things right. Consequently, you get emotionally paralyzed. I call it emotional paralysis. The psychological strangulation of the silent treatment has the power to leave you emotionally stunned, unable to express or even comprehend your own feelings. This emotional numbness further isolates you from the people who care about you and makes it difficult for you to seek help. It is as if you have turned into a statue, frozen in place, unable to move or break free from the icy grip of the rumination and narcissist control. As emotional paralysis sets in, you find that your ability to connect with others is severely hindered. The natural flow of conversation and emotional expression feels blocked, like a dam preventing a river from reaching its destination. You struggle to articulate your thoughts and emotions even to those you trust, which leads to misunderstandings and further isolation. The emotional paralysis also impacts your decision-making process and abilities. You find yourself second-guessing every choice, paralyzed by the fear of displeasing the narcissist and facing their further silent treatment. This constant self-doubt makes it difficult to trust your own judgment, leaving you feeling powerless and stuck. As the silent treatment persists, you begin to lose yourself in the emptiness of the narcissist's emotional void. Your identity becomes blurred and you struggle to remember who you were before the narcissist invaded your life. You feel like a ghost, haunting the fringes of your own existence, longing to be seen and heard. The loss of identity can make you question your own values, beliefs, and preferences. You find yourself adopting the narcissist's opinions, tastes, and interests, discarding the things that once made you unique. As your sense of self erodes, you become increasingly vulnerable to the narcissist's manipulation and control. This is why you feel like you don't recognize yourself once you have left them. This is why there is a cognitive dissonance between who you used to be before meeting them and who you have become now. In conclusion, silent treatment is a devastating form of psychological strangulation employed by a narcissist to maintain control over their victims. It leads to desperation for validation, isolation and loneliness, self-blame and guilt, emotional paralysis, and ultimately loss of identity. Remember that you deserve to be seen, heard, and valued, and that you have the strength to reclaim your life and regain your identity, regardless of how you were treated and what they convinced you of. That was it for today's episode. I hope you found it insightful. If you did, please let me know in comments, drop a like, share this with others. I'll talk with you in the next one. Until then, let the healing begin and continue.